After these prototyping weeks, etc., we start deciding on the stuff, and then pre-production we do a vertical slice. And while we do our vertical slice, we already start pitching.
That happens often, right? There's always this joke like when you get an estimate, double it, then double it again to get the actual goal. Yeah, so I don't think you should feel bad.
Systems in place, then stuff is created by the systems, not by the developers, and so you don't have to put as much detailed interaction, etc. inside, which just consumes a lot of time.
Pixelsplit is the game studio behind Deadly Days Roadtrip, which got released in September and hit number 2 on Steam's top sellers. Riad, who ran the studio machine bench for over 10 years and is now building Codecks, sat down with Bennet, co-founder of Pixelsplit, to understand how they deal with their game production, what they learned from working on multiple projects, and why their vertical slice is the most critical production milestone.
Looking at your studio, what amazes me is just the sheer amount of games you're putting out. I mean, most studios take maybe 2 to 3 years for a single game. It seems like you are putting one out pretty much every year, or like sometimes even more than one game. How is that possible? You must have a huge team.
No, actually we are just five people in the core team. We get some freelancers here and there, but in the core we are 5, and it's also quite consistent over the years. But I think it is one game every 2 years, but the last year and this year was a bit compressed, I would say. But we are getting faster, that's for sure. And the projects get bigger in the same time. So something is going in the right direction.
Yeah. So I guess it's a good sign if the projects keep getting bigger, right? Because that shows that also your team has more what's the word? Like they have more confidence in themselves, and also like other people might have confidence in you because you're also working now with publishers and also investors, or
no investors, just publishers. Yeah, we always try to be as lean and bootstrapped as possible. No obligations to the outside world, but eventually you have to
just good games.
Just good games, but eventually you have to get some money to keep it running during development. But so far it went quite good for us.
And talking about the 7 games, you have done 7 games so far, right? Or even more?
I lost count.
Yeah,
to be honest, because we had a company before that we also made games. Some were transferred over, and so I lost track a bit.
Yeah, that's fair. So how do you approach these games in terms of project scheduling? Is it one game after another? You finish like one game and then you move on to the next, or are they happening in parallel? Because you said also the especially recently, it sounded like there's like multiple things going on at the same time.
So what we try to do is one game, just one game. And we had a phase where we had 2.5 games. Oh. And this was really stressful and not good. And the games turned out good, but it was a lot of stress and scope creep and whatnot. Was not healthy. So that was a learning from the team. And we said we want in the future just make one game. I think we can extend this rule if we get more people, if the team gets bigger, then we maybe can do another project. But right now, with these 5 core people, we shouldn't do more than one project.
Yeah.
So we can have one new project and one project which we maintain, do updates here and there.
Right.
But Indoorlands and REVEIL. REVEIL was a horror game. Indoorlands was a theme park management game, and they overlapped very, very much. And both were very ambitious games, and so that was not very good.
Yeah, that sounds tough, especially with such a low team count. Were people split across projects? I mean, were 2 people working only on one game and the other people on the other game, or how do you even distribute work when you're working on multiple games with a small team?
We split it a bit for the different projects, but everyone had their hands on every project, so it was more like okay, this month you work on this, and the other month you work on the other thing. But like I said, right now just for one project, and so we don't have this trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, another thing that stands out to me is how diverse your games are. Like different genres, horror, management, simulation, and so on. Now you worked on a sequel. I think your first big sequel.
It's more a spin-off, but let's call it sequel.
Yeah. Right. It's Deadly Days Roadtrip, right? So how did you decide to do a spin-off and like revisit this IP?
So I think Deadly Days, so the first one was released in 2019, and then we did several projects in between till last year. But back then we already had this idea to do some sort of, because Deadly Days is a strategic zombie survival roguelite, so you have a group and you manage them a bit, but you also have quite a lot of hordes of zombies and you shoot them down and whatnot. But it is always you have a group, and this fantasy of having a classic top-down shooter and you are one character and you are very powerful, etc. In that setting we had already back then. And then in the last years these survivor likes came up. And then this idea bubbled up again because it was quite genre fitting. Then we also had this inventory management genre, which also popped up. And in Deadly Days 1, we also had quite interesting items, but you didn't have a really inventory, but more like slots, etc. And then we just prototyped, would this be compatible? Survivors like with inventory management, we were quite skeptic about that, but it worked out. And Deadly Days, I think, was one of our best games, at least in the long tail, and had a large user base, also from Asia, and also streamer coverage, etc. So the metrics were quite good on that game. Then we did several prototypes for other games, for other game ideas, and this is the one that stuck with us. And that we then continued slowly.
Yeah, cool. How do you mentioned that you were developing multiple ideas, right? How do you pick the right one, basically, the one you want to commit 6 months, 1 year or more of your life?
So basically what formed just over the years with all the learnings is that we start our project with an ideation phase, and this is where we collect ideas and start making prototypes in game jams, internal game jams. And I think the most important thing, if we consider projects to be prototyped, is games that we want to do and games that we are capable of doing. So the team is skilled for the task or the potential scope of the game, and then that there is a market for the game. I think this is the triangle that is very important, and each idea that comes to our mind has to be compared to this triangle or fit into it. In our Discord, we have an ideation channel, so everyone can drop ideas and we can quickly discuss them. No deep discussion, but more like, oh, this is cool, or no one replies, then maybe it's not a good idea. It's very intuition based because everyone forms opinions. Sometimes we talk about different ideas. But the most important step is the prototyping, because then you get onto it, and after 1 week you see, okay, this is pretty cool, or often you see, okay, this is not fun at all, and we don't see any way to find the fun or to get to the vision we had, and then we pick the ones that were the strongest. That's
makes sense.
The fuzzy mess.
No, I think that makes sense, that you want to kind of also measure your team excitement about something, right? Like, it's not, like you said, it's not just about, is there a market outside, but also how excited are we about something. And sometimes, like in any project, I think like an idea comes up and you notice, does it have legs or not? Like, do people like keep bringing it up, and being excited about it, or does everybody kind of stop talking about it, right? So I guess for you, it's like really organic process of figuring that out. And like, at what point do you decide, okay, let's chase this, or let's create a prototype here? Is that, do you just do it, or do you have like a form, like every fourth Friday in the month, or like how does that happen?
Usually we try to have 1 to 2, let's call it internal game jams. It's more like prototype weeks. This year we didn't manage to do one, but we will have one next week. Yay. And then everyone brings ideas, and then we pitch them, and then we say, or everyone votes for different ideas, and then we start working on an idea. And then when the week is over, maybe we extend it. If we say, okay, there is this potential, we have to do one more week, then we will extend it. But eventually we will look at it and say, okay, none of these ideas we had were good, and this prototype didn't work. Or we say, okay, this was really great. Let's continue working on it. And I think then is also the point where we have to show it others. So friends, family, other devs, maybe even publishers we are closely connected with. It's also a good point to validate your idea. But yeah, it's like I said, it's a bit fuzzy, the process, and there's no checklist to be made. It's really intuition based, and yeah, it depends very, very much on the prototype. But yeah, excitement is really important, and you also have to have the fantasy. Okay, I can make something out of it, because often you have a cool mechanic, but you don't see a vision for it. So then this also probably doesn't work. But when you have the vision, everyone wants to work on it, and you see there are these market opportunities. And maybe you got already some feedback from friends or whatever. Yeah, that's a good sign, and then you continue. So what we do, what we try to do, is be as sustainable as possible. Like I said, we want to be bootstrapped, etc. So don't rely on too much external upfront funding. So basically, we plan everything, or we reverse engineer our timelines based on our budget and on, for example, when is this next Steam Next Fest. So we say, okay, each month I do a liquidity planning for our company. I know, okay, these are our expenses, this is our income. Not very exciting, but it really gives me good information. Okay, how long in the current state with the current cash flows will the company last? And in that time frame, plus a buffer, we need to complete a project. And this is one anchor to work backwards from.
Yeah.
And then you have a look, okay, when is the next event where we could place, for example, a demo? Then usually these are the Steam Next Fest events. And then the plan starts to come up. Then we set up the basic pillars of the game, and then we work towards this milestone with several milestones in between. But this is the method.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, and I think this kind of retro planning, or like knowing at this point you will run out of money, or you will have to start. You have agreed on a marketing event like the Next Fest and so on. I think that's quite common in game development, at least on like PC and console side, right? I think that's also something that makes game development special or different from other software, which is often continuously created and like goes on for a long time, which can be the case for video games as well. But at least the initial version, often you get down to it and you work on it for a year or longer, and you know kind of this is the target date we have to hit. So you mentioned you set up different milestones. What are those kind of milestones? Is it like, are they matching the publisher milestones that you have, or do you have like some recipe for yourself where you say, oh, it's always like pre-production, production, alpha, and so on?
Yeah. So it has different layers. So we have this basics, or in the last years we found the basic structure: ideation, pre-production, production, post-production. This is something we completely ignored for years, maybe even for centuries. But I read a book from, how is it called? Le Marchand, a playful production process, I think the book is called. Really big book or thick book, but it really resonated with me and opened my eyes towards this process, because I studied computer science and I was teach iterative working, but I never believed in these production steps which are necessary for creative media, whatever it is, also movies, etc. And then I read the book, and what really stuck with me was because I still believe in iterative working. We iterate a lot on our games, and the coin he termed was concentric development, which means you work on new stuff, but you also come back to the old stuff. And this is the closer you come to your final release date, the more you refine and don't add new stuff. Really well explained in the book, and that really changed the game for us. Now I lost your question.
No, it was about the timeline. I think you answered it. So you are working in these different stages.
Yeah.
And I agree, it's quite hard to, when we say we're doing iterative development, it's not as trivial to explain what it means, because working in iteration doesn't mean we do just whatever and we have no plan, but it's fine because it's iterative, right? There are like certain ideas about it.
Yeah. Now I got a question again. So after these prototyping weeks, etc., we start deciding on the stuff, and then pre-production we do a vertical slice. And while we do our vertical slice, we already start pitching and eventually releasing, for example, Steam playtests, or on itch.io we make a release, or even releasing a demo on Steam. It depends a bit. But each of these things I mentioned can be a milestone. So it's more like we want to have a playtest at that date, so we can participate in Next Fest in, 4 months, and then again working backwards to it. And then I think what is really cool about deadlines is that you have to prioritize, because without deadlines, everything is important.
Yeah.
And everyone works on something, but when you have a deadline, you get the feeling what is important, and then you can probably scope. So yeah, I think it's important to have these milestones or deadlines, however you want to call it, and then work backwards and plan them.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think also just focusing is so hard, and kind of moving on is also very hard. Knowing when the system is kind of okay for shipping and so on, and kind of going to the next step, and that's where like a timeline or something helps you. What are other project management techniques that you're using? Is your process more inspired by something like Scrum or Waterfall or the different schools that are out there?
Yeah, I think it's a hybrid. So we call it Scrum. But I think the founder, the creator of Scrum wouldn't agree. Anyway, so we have two runs of 2 weeks, so sprints of 2 weeks, and before that we have a planning meeting. We roughly plan the scope. What one thing that we realized now, and one thing that I don't fight anymore, is that we usually only hit about 50 to 60% of what was planned. This really hurt a lot and hurt my brain a lot in the last year, because I wanted to have at least 90 or 100 or whatever to really deliver on the stuff that we decided on. the more I thought about it, I knew, okay, it is no one's real fault. It's not that someone is not working or something. It's just that stuff comes up that you didn't plan for, or just plain bugs or something. And yeah, I could say we don't plan as much into the run to fill the 100%. But this also doesn't feel right, because when you overplan, you also have a vision. Okay, this is the stuff I will be working next on, and you can talk about it. If you put it too much in the background or not visible enough, then no upfront discussion happens, etc. I like this over planning a bit. I think 50% is still not ideal, but maybe we will come closer to 70. But one thing I really accepted is that everyday stuff comes up that wasn't as planned, and has to be done anyway. But I think this structure of 2 weeks to retrospect on what we have done, to say, okay, these are the next steps, and in the end we try to test the current build and feedback it, and this works quite well. But it's not, oh, we make a party because we hit the 100% of our story points or whatever.
Yeah, I think that happens often, right? There's always this joke, like when you get a estimate, double it, then double it again to get the actual goal. And yeah, so I don't think you should feel bad. I think that's fair. And it's interesting what you say about if you don't fill up the queue. I think it works differently for everybody, right? But you use it as an opportunity to talk about stuff and so on, and have those kickoffs. And I think those are really, really important, whether you have them ahead of time or during the thing. There are probably different thinkings, mindsets about that. But I think that's like the after all, everything is about collaboration, right? And that's definitely, I think, usually where problems occur when you have like different people work on something and from different skill sets. And I think that's one thing where Scrum fails us as game developers, is this idea that in Scrum every person is equal and there's like not much specialization. But everybody can kind of jump in for everybody, which like maybe in software projects is like more likely. But for game dev, I don't know how your team is, but you have some generalists, but you also have probably specialists that have like art background, programming background, and so on. And they probably don't, the tasks are not necessarily interchangeable between them.
But to be honest, we are very generalist focused. So we are basically 3 programmers, 1 artist, but one can do a bit of the other. And then we have our external freelancers, etc. But mostly of the core stuff is a bit exchangeable, so we don't run these super hard specializations. I think this is quite a bit unnormal in our studio. But it works.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you the power to work on a lot of different genres, I feel. I would be curious to know kind of what impact you think that has also on like project planning and the roadmap and so on, because you worked on like linear horror games, kind of very narrative. You also worked on roguelike games with procedural content. How do you feel about the difference in planning for those games?
I think what we learned is that linear horror games are super hard to make. The funny story about REVEIL is the horror game. We planned to create it in 3 months, and in the end it were 5 years. Not full time though, but that was the complete misplanning or whatever. Scope creep, definitely scope creep. And one thing that I realized that now weighs us towards more mechanical games is that you can more easily scale them. So if you have a game, if you have systems in place, then stuff is created by the systems, not by the developers, and so you don't have to put as much detailed interaction, etc., inside, which just consumes a lot of time. And I think just for our studio size, these type of games are way more producible and also scalable, because then okay, one character, I don't know, takes us a week or whatever, and then you can plan that and even hire someone if you have a very tight process for it, and extend the team if you want. Yeah. But
you could do DLCs and like
definitely, yeah.
do more content. I think it's possible for narrative games, but like doing a DLC for a roguelike game is really, really easy, right? Because you can just throw it into the mix.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, but maybe to come back to your question, it happened because we accept all ideas, and it's really something that we want to keep. We want to work on new stuff. So we don't want to do the same thing over and over again. So now with Deadly Days Roadtrip, it is a different game than the first one, definitely, and had its own challenges, etc. So that was okay, but if I would imagine we would now do Deadly Days 3, 4, 5, I think no one would really enjoy it that much. Yeah, that's why we really are quite broad in our portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah, and the visual style and so on changed also, right? So and the genre changed a bit and so on. So you're using the same IP kind of, but it is quite a different game from the first one, right?
So, but it is compatible. That's really because the old one was also a roguelite. It was also zombie apocalypse, but also shooter-ish.
Yeah. So you saved a bit of time, I guess, to like in figuring some stuff out, because like the character you kind of knew and so like conceptually.
Yeah, I think we saved a bit of time, definitely. Yeah, but we lost that by switching an engine.
yeah. Tell me something about we also. Yeah, at Machine Mensch we switched engine for every single game.
Oh, nice.
I cannot recommend. Yeah. When we go to your website, it says Remote First Studio. How's that? I think that's really interesting. Like interesting challenges come from that, right? Like in all kinds of directions. Like it's challenging having an office and like being like everybody being local and like commuting and so on. Challenging being remote first. There's also the hybrid model. So, but you don't have like an office presence anywhere.
We had an office for several years, but during the coronavirus, we closed that down eventually, and in a long process with the team, etc., we discussed everything, what are the pros and cons, etc., and finally we said, okay, let's try remote, because in that time frame of Corona, which was 2 years for us, where we didn't go to the office, we released almost 2 games, so something did work. Then we also discussed, okay, what about hybrid? And I think hybrid is really the worst of all. I think is a spectrum, but I don't know if half of the team is in the office and half, or maybe a few persons are remote, then the office people will have some sort of silo and they will be more bonded together, etc. They will have this, in German you would say Flurfunk. I don't know how you call it in English.
The water boiler talk.
Yeah, stuff like that. And it didn't really feel the right way. So either we go to the office or we go remote, and that really worked well for us. I think it also in the office the production issues of overscoping, etc., could happen more easily because nothing was written down that much, and you would just do stuff here and there. And with remote, you are forced to communicate in written language. We also have our calls, etc., but yeah, you are more forced to plan stuff, create tickets, etc. So production-wise, I think it is a pro in some sense. But I also miss the office very much. Sometimes just chatting with someone and reading how everyone feels, etc. Because it's still a challenge. So how to simulate this office vibe in remote, because yeah, I think it's not possible.
But do you try? I mean, do
yeah,
you?
sure. We try
do you
different
have-
stuff. Yeah. Also, I don't know, board game night or something like
Mhm.
that. But
Board game simulator.
yeah, right. But yeah, it's still not the same.
Yeah, it is tricky. I agree. I think maybe hybrid is the hardest over the other ones. The other ones are at least you have clear advantages and disadvantages, and with hybrid it can feel like you have all the advantages and all the disadvantages
Right.
at once.
Yeah.
Which can be tricky. And yeah, it's interesting that how it had an effect on your tool usage. You have to document more, but then that can be good.
Mhm. It's not really documentation. It's more the planning and communication.
Mhm.
It's not two people talking about stuff and doing stuff, but it's more like, hey, team,
Yeah.
this is the proposal, and do we want to do it like that? And everyone can say their words to it, and yeah, this
Yeah,
really
cool.
makes stuff more transparent. But one disclaimer: I think you really have to trust each other a lot. I think generally game development is very. You have to be a good team, bond together, etc. But I think especially remote, you really have the written word is a strange thing. You
Mhm.
always have to have some sort of context. Who is this person? How
Yeah.
does he or she write? And all this you have to have in your mind. And if you did never meet a person, this is really, really hard. I think also, I don't know, conflicts can arouse from that because
Yeah.
I don't know, I often use irony or sarcasm or whatever, and if you don't know that, you can really misinterpret that. Yeah, and I think it's really important that you always assume that everyone has a good intent on
Yeah.
everything he writes, and yeah, that you have the people that really have a good intent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually true. Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, totally. So much is about trust. And it's how do you build the trust? I guess like just through working together for a long time. What I find is that when you do something like a team event, that really accelerates trust. Like
Mhm.
one personal meeting can go such a long way to build trust because you see people not just like in that half hour of a meeting, but also like how they are like in regular life,
Mhm.
right? Like how they
Definitely.
go about their stuff.
Yeah. So what we try to do is 2 to 3 physical meetings a year, be it Gamescom or be it just one time we went to Belgium, just in the forest, whatever. It's not really about, I don't know, team building activities. I don't know, let your fault behind and they have
Yeah.
to pick you up or stuff like that. I think that's not really necessary, but really just looking someone in the face and talking and eating together, laughing together, etc. And I think it's not much more that you need for that to happen. I think at least in the small team, I think 10 plus, it's again a complete different challenge. All
Yeah.
this, yeah.
Yeah. And so you're talking about trust. Do you have kind of a flat hierarchy, or do you have somebody whose job title is kind of the producer or project manager, or how do you split up that responsibility within the team?
So I think it is flat. It is flat, but Stefan, my co-founder, and I think we also have the last saying. But before we do a last saying, we also allow very much discussion and hearing everyone and yeah, we're being collaborative about it, looking at all the angles of something. Yeah, and I think the production head is my one. Mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, everyone also has a look in our project management, Codecks, etc., to make tickets when they are necessary and
Right.
what work has to be done, etc. But
Yeah, it's important for the whole team to be at least involved.
definitely,
Maybe
yeah.
not driving it, but
Yeah.
like at least part of the process.
Definitely.
And you said you have 2 runs, kind of like 2 parallel runs happening at the
Did
same
I
time?
say-
Or
No, it was
it's like 2 weeks of run.
weeks, one
Yeah.
run. Yes.
And then the whole team in that run,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So,
Oh, yes.
and then you decide, you have like a planning meeting. Let's focus on these things. Let's focus on this game for the next 2 weeks. And and then you at the end you have a review meeting where you just look at stuff
Right.
together,
Yeah.
I think. And then you also have retrospectives. Right?
Yeah, but they don't work that well, to be honest. But maybe because we continuously communicate about stuff, because not very much comes up in these retrospectives, but
Yeah.
sometimes it does. Yeah, I think one thing in this whole 2-week structure, which is also very important, what we try to achieve, which we don't achieve necessarily every time, is that we try to do a testing Friday. It doesn't necessarily have to be Friday, but somewhere in these 2 weeks, we really try to have a day where we can just play test the latest version with all changes in it. And from that on, feedback, iterate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Talking about playtesting, you are playtesting with your team, but then also the kind of the community is playtesting with you and giving you feedback. I feel you've been popular with the community, and it has been a big important aspect of your growth. So tell us a bit, what's your how important is community building for you?
I think it is very important. But you also have to listen. I think that's really, yeah. If you want to make a good game, you have to listen to the people that consume your game and steer in the right direction without losing your creative vision. That's also so important. But I don't know, if you have a community, you have this viral growing machine. It doesn't necessarily have to be that your game gets a big hit, but everyone that talks about your game, that is involved in your game, is someone that can tell their friends about the game. So marketing wise, it's really interesting, but also for the game, to make it a good game, it's really great to have these insights. And also Codecks helped us a lot because we added the open decks, and this drives people engaging in a structured way because we also have our Discord channels where they just write about stuff, but having it directly in a ticket or a card, and others can upvote. It's not necessarily that it is a very good structure for us to use this and directly work on it, but it is a structure for everyone involved in the community to get a feeling what are other people thinking about and where are the priorities, etc. I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, I think also community is one of the assets in a game studio, assets that you really can take along from project to project, because if you start a new project, you can say, hey, community, we have a cool new prototype. Do you want to check it out? And then you go on from there. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be a huge head start.
Yes.
But
you own it. That's the cool thing, mostly, because there's also Discord in between. But yeah, it's not like I don't know.
A big platform that starts with
yes.
S.
Yeah, right. that owns your distribution completely. Yeah. So you could, with this community, start your own store if you would like. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it helps you improve the game. It gives you early validation, I guess, because they get to play the game first, right? And that could also give you some signal what to do next. And I feel with what's interesting about procedural game is also, do you get to release or test it earlier? Because I assume, or maybe it's like with narrative, in contrast to narrative game. I feel a procedural game, you could, in my mind, after half of the development time, you could already start playing it for real and so on. Whereas like for a narrative game, maybe if there's only half of it, it's kind of unsatisfying. Or like, how do you think about that?
That's really true. That's what I meant with the when I said these systematic, emergent, mechanical games, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, they are playable, and narrative is. We also made it work with REVEIL, so we had it put in chapters. So our vertical slice and our demo, etc., was always chapter 1, but it really is, from a developer's perspective, always the same. You know the puzzles, etc.
Yeah.
And then you have to work to the final act, create everything together. But in that sense, you cannot embed the community that well. You can show them for example, the demo and say, hey, is this cool? Is this a cool teaser? But you can never say, hey, this whole game, is this a cool experience? Because then you would have spoiled everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And with a mechanical game, for Deadly Days Roadtrip, for example, our demo was the full game state at that point when we released the demo. Maybe we had a few more items, but basically it was really the state of the game back then. And yeah, then a few months later we released an update and early access eventually, etc. But much more relaxed and closer to the product, to the final verdict of the players, etc. Yeah.
One thing I found, so having worked on like Curious Expedition and so on, one thing I found interesting is that for procedural game, also the playtime is longer. I mean, obviously, because you don't play it once and you kind of consume the experience, but you can play it like for 100 hours. And that means a person or community member is longer with you.
Definitely.
Like, even though like they pay the same price, right? It's not about that, but just in terms of their how long they're around, they are longer around. So that makes it easier to build a community, because if everybody plays your game and it's great for 1 hour, but then I'm done with it, I'm moving on. Having a longer playtime allows you to have stack people, kind of have people be excited about around the same time, and like makes it much more viral. And I think that's something I really also like about procedural games.
Definitely. And what's also great about it, it's not only community, but also streamability, influencer, because it's the same for them. If they can, I don't know, exploit game mechanics, etc., and repeat it over again, or just stream on the side, no big effort required, but something new happens. I think that's also a big thing that you have to have an eye on when you develop a game. Sure, you can also do the first-person narrative games. It's also cool, and we are very proud of what we did, but it's really hard mode. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you talked a lot. I think you have done so many games and like across so many different genres and so on. I feel you must have really figured out how to do this well. I wonder. We are talking about the production of assets, and I feel a lot of game development is about scoping and like scope control and kind of getting to know how many assets can we create, kind of what's the content length and so on, and figuring that out as early as possible, right? We also talked about pre-production, because if you don't figure it out during pre-production, the worst thing is you start working on like huge levels or something. Then after a couple of months, you realize, oh shit, like we're not able to get this closely to done. So you start throwing away a lot of stuff, which if you would have just measured earlier, you would have known, kind of like you would have had a better idea where you're going. So how do you treat that? Like you said, you're a generalist, but how do you approach like asset production? Do you try to figure that out at the start of the project, or does it develop forward? Or
I would say this is still one of our weaknesses, to be honest. But the process we are trying to hit or work towards was really triggered by Codecks journeys. This was really eye-opening in a sense, because we also, like, we never thought in, I don't know, ideation, pre-production, these phases. We also never thought in really workflows. Sure, there were workflows, but they were never communicated, etc.
They were not standardized.
Standardized, yes. And now with Deadly Days, we did this the first time. So we have journeys for characters. So At first we ideate, then we do a prototype, then we do request artwork from our freelancer, then we implement it, etc., etc. It's still not perfect, still a lot of chaos happening, but I think in our next project it will be better again. And but to come back to your question, I don't know. I think we are not really good. It really is also an iterative thing. So we look forward, I don't know, maybe 3 runs in the micro things. So sure, we also have a macro perspective, what we want to achieve, etc. But we never really in super detail write down these are the 100 assets we need and want to make, etc. Because like I said, always chaos happening and always stuff coming in between, getting more complicated. So in the end, we will just do 50 anyway. So why waste any planning effort on the other 50? Yeah, it's a bit extreme, but I hope you get the point.
No, I think that makes sense. You try to, I think one trick is always trying to kind of delay decisions as long as you can, like committing to something until you have as much information as possible, right? So that's, I personally don't believe in kind of planning a project scope like 2 years in advance and like, oh, this is like all the 50 items we'll have and so on. For me, it's more important to be able to be reactive, kind of like to measure data and kind of understand, like you said, okay, we need for a level, we need 1 week. That means we have like 1 year of time until release. So that's at most maybe like 10 levels and so on, right? Like that kind of thing helps you guide. Doesn't mean that you need to know exactly which level you will be working on, but having an idea of like, okay, this is kind of where we are, and this can help a lot. Is there any project that it seems like everything you touched? I mean, it's you released everything, or were there projects where, I mean, one took like 5 years to set, but were there any where you are also like, oh, this is like the one you're not happy to talk about?
No, to be honest, everything we are very proud of. Everything has a story and was complicated in the end. And
the learning for you.
And the learning, definitely, because also we switched engines, we switched genres, etc. So it's always learning. But I also think that's most of the fun of game development. If you wouldn't learn or do new stuff, then it would get boring very fast. I don't know. But one thing I wanted to say in these phases, ideation, pre-production, etc., I think pre-production is an important point because in our process we get our vertical slice, which we also use as a demo, etc., out of it. And this is the point where you get a feeling about these workflows and how long does stuff take, etc. But it's still super rough. I don't know, a character can be 1 week or 2 weeks, and then you can't plan the full timeline perfectly. It's more gut feeling, data, but it's still very fuzzy in a way. But it's an important milestone to have everything in place, to have everything done 2 times. I don't know, 2 items, 2 characters, etc. Or maybe more depending on the content category. But and then learning from that and then estimating how long will the third one take, etc. But this is something we do, but we don't plan out the whole asset list and whatnot.
And it's good to push it to like something like vertical slice quality or like shippable, because if you only do like gray box or like just really rough, it's fine, like we figured out, like you're not answering the difficult questions which could screw you later on, right? So that's really important to have a realistic idea. Cool.